YouTube, what's going on? It's Richard, founder of Short Term Rental University and Airbnb Superhost. We just finished the STRU Live. I apologize for my voice, but we were just changing lives. 36 entrepreneurs from all over the world, Germany, Kuwait, we had people from Canada, all over the place. And we really just, I'm so grateful for everybody for showing up. So pardon my voice, but I'm coming to you live from the Airbnb powered hotel called Niido in downtown Nashville. For those of you who are unaware or have never heard of Niido, it's a new hotel concept. I believe Airbnb has two, one in Nashville and one in Orlando. And in short, what happened here was this was a brand new building, I believe. This is all things that I've heard from residents and people that have been in and around the area. This is a very large multi-family house. They're all apartments that are for rent. I know for a fact there's 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and there's probably hundreds of units in this building. Apparently people signed leases to rent the apartment, and then a few months later, Airbnb came in and either purchased the building or partnered with the current management or whatever, but they're now powering this entire building, and it's sort of a new hybrid test concept that Airbnb is trying to see if this makes sense in probably cities across the country. I don't think they're doing this just for Nashville and Orlando. These are probably tests, and they will determine whether or not this is something that works in the future markets. And let's see what this is all about. So what are they trying to accomplish? Well, it's kind of interesting. In this area here in Nashville, which is incredibly popular for short-term rentals due to bachelorette parties and country music and so on and so forth, I believe that there's a real need for short-term rentals that compete with hotels at a lower price point, offering perhaps less hospitality and less labor. Directly across the street is the Margarita building that's going up. Also across the street is the Hilton True TRU, which is their lower price concept. There's also a Stay Alfred directly across the place. So there are all of these towers that are catering to the increasing demand and the popularity of Nashville by millennials and other travelers that are coming here to party and enjoy the town, but perhaps can't afford some of the higher end hotels and or are interested in this new sort of modern hospitality component where they check in themselves and they don't pay for all of these other services. So let's start off with the things that I like about the concept. The very first thing I like about the concept is that it's new and it's innovative. I'm drawn to things that are new and haven't been tried before, so I applaud Airbnb and Niido for trying these new things. The second thing that I really like about the space, both the unit that I'm in right now filming and what I'm speaking about more broadly, generally speaking, is the design. I think the aesthetic is really spot on. They've really captured it quite well. The furniture, the furnishings, the look and the feel of the entire place, the outdoor space by the pool, all of those things I think are really successful and I like them a lot. In addition, they're doing new innovative things, or at least new for me, but I think that they're really interesting. So there is a drop box, a locker where any type of delivery could be made, and they put in a code, so that's kind of interesting. At the same time, they have dry cleaning that gets dropped off into that same sort of locker. It's a totally different location, but they're starting to think about the conveniences for when residents or guests are here, but they're not here to take a delivery or to take dry cleaning. I think that's really interesting. Then they have some other things that are, perhaps superfluous unless you have a dog. But there's a dog wash and a dog run, and so the building's dog friendly. And so I think they're trying to do things that perhaps don't exist in other buildings, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So let's turn to some question marks that I have about the business model, and probably not even the business model as much as the execution. The first thing that I would say is the construction quality and also the cleanliness of the building is problematic for me. It just seems like nobody's really paying attention, nobody's maintaining the building. As you walk through the hallways, there's litter and debris, and I don't know if it's the cleaning crews or the residents, but there's trash and piles of trash, and people come here to party, and there's just trash as you walk through the hallways. That's not exactly conducive to my stay here in Nashville, and in fact, given my preference, I'd probably pay more to stay in a clean, vacuumed, clean hallway, kind of place that encourages me to smile and be happy. I don't really want to walk through something that's dirty and or trash laden. A second point that I have concerns with is it doesn't impact me particularly. I don't have the most sensitive of noses, but they infuse smells into the common areas and each of the rooms And that's not a problem, except for the fact that it is excessive. The smell is so incredibly strong that to me it's offensive, and I believe it's almost like they're trying to hide something. There are people that have very sensitive noses that have traveled with me in my prior brilliant transportation company that would not be able to walk into this building and or stay here. So I don't know why they do it, and I don't know why they have it turned to volume 11, but the thing is cranked way too high, and it seems fake, and it seems phony, and it's way too much. And while the concept is great, I love scents infused into hotels and into lobbies and into rooms. This is somebody's like not paying attention, and the thing is just jacked up. It's inappropriate. 3, Airbnb touts itself about community, and it's about bringing people together in community, and the common spaces, the decor, the decoration, the furnishings, it's all really, really high end, and you heard me say how much I appreciate it earlier. But for some reason, all of the common spaces that should be utilized by the residents and the visitors in this beautiful space are soulless. There's nobody there. There's no warmth, there's no energy, there's no excitement, and I think part of the reason is there was one very tiny communal kitchen. We couldn't find cups to have water. There was a Keurig for coffee, which is way too small for a building of this magnitude, and there was no coffee and no coffee mugs. So it's kind of like they have it, they say they're about the community, but the execution is really poor/terrible. The fourth thing that's a little strange to me is there is really high security presence, and these security guards don't look particularly friendly, and they're wearing bright yellow shirts and it says security on it. When Eric and I arrived here at about midnight the first night, the very first thing we saw was 2 of these security guards, and it sort of alarmed me, it startled me. As far as I'm concerned, Nashville is relatively safe, and so while the presence of security and all of that should be a positive thing, just the bright colors and where they were, and I've continued to see them throughout my stay, it's almost like we're in this really dangerous area and there's way too much security and they're dressed inappropriately, and it doesn't make me feel warm, welcome, and hospitality or even safe. It actually makes me feel like I'm on alarm and alert and something bad is about to happen. Another question mark that I have is about the latch application. That's how you get into the building, and that's how you get to the different elevators, and that's how you get into your unit. And while in concept I'm all for technology and apps and keyless entry and being able to come and go as I want, the Latch app, in my opinion, needs a lot of improvement. It is very slow. It is very confusing. Every single guest that I've seen standing at the elevator or standing outside the door is complaining about it. It doesn't work very well. It's too slow. You have to have the right elevator bank and have it all like, it just doesn't really work, and it's not intuitive how to lock the door. I heard other guests saying that they've left their door unlocked unknowingly every time they came and went because they didn't realize you have to push the middle of the latch thing and then hold the phone or whatever it was. It just didn't really work. Our host here had 2 key cards, which made it much easier, but still not great. And so I think the entire invisible hand, modern hospitality, keyless entry thing isn't quite there yet using Latch and powered by Airbnb here at Niido. Another really crazy thing that happened while we were here, and apparently it didn't happen once, it happened twice. We were fortunate that we missed the first incident, but I arrived on Saturday at about midnight, and apparently a fire alarm went off earlier in the day. Somebody who perhaps was inebriated, had too much to drink, thought they were a prankster, thought it was really funny, pulled the fire alarm so the entire building had to evacuate. Fortunately, we missed that. Unfortunately, the very night before my first live event ever, when I'm trying to get a great night's sleep and go and deliver and serve the community, I was awoken at 3 in the morning by an incredibly loud and persistent fire alarm, so loud and so persistent that Eric and I were unable to pass through it and just stay. We wanted to stay, we wanted to sleep, but we were unable, and so we got dressed and we went downstairs and we joined hundreds of people that were confused and upset and really not happy, and there was fire trucks, and it was just an absolutely awful thing because there was no fire. And so the men and women of Nashville, I want to thank them for their service and coming over here quickly in case of emergency, but it's just such a terrible thing because lives might have been at risk if they were here for some prankster and some false alarm, some inebriated person, when there could be real emergencies anywhere else. And it also disrupted everybody here, and the people that were outside were talking about, I can't believe this has happened twice in 2 days. It happened to me once and it was terribly inconvenient. In all my travels, in decades of travel, I've only had one fire alarm in London, and that was a real fire, and that saved our lives. This is only the second incident, and it was a false alarm, and apparently it seems to happen here with some regularity. And that's just not acceptable, inappropriate, and even with the security presence, there's still pranksters that are inebriated doing things that are inappropriate, and that is just not something that I would ever want to brand with my brand. So Airbnb, if you're listening, you really need to think about putting your brand on this concept where people are getting upset. It's not helping the Airbnb brand or the Airbnb community. It's shining a bad spotlight on bringing all of the terrible things that people say. People that are partying, trash, litter, noise, debris, false alarms. It's not a positive experience, Airbnb. You need to fix that quickly. So the final thing I want to point out is this is a building that's leased by full-time residents. In their contract, they are allowed to sublet, if you will, when they're not here, up to a certain number of days. I believe it's about 180 days. So if somebody's here part-time or they have multiple residents, it's a great idea that they can have a rental or a lease here, and then when they're not using it, get their rent paid by somebody else or even monetize it, right? That's the basic premise of rental arbitrage. So they're allowing it, they're encouraging it, and that's the business model. But the really kind of strange thing as a guest here, and I think it's even more strange as a resident, is it's half filled with people that live here and half filled by transient people, and nobody quite feels like they belong. And so that sense of community that I discussed earlier, it's just lacking. Like nobody feels like they're welcome here, and consequently it's a bunch of strangers that are upset with latch, and the hallways are dirty and there's noise and fire alarms. And to me, it's just a very disjointed experience. It's not really very well executed. I don't think it's very well thought out. I love the concept. I love the way that they were thinking about doing it. But they really need to spend some time here themselves. They need to put some people here to understand what's going on here, and they need to fix all of that really quickly. So in conclusion, I have 3 closing thoughts. The first one is, would I sign a lease here based on everything that I've seen? And the answer is no. It's not necessarily because what I see about Niido that leads me to that conclusion, although if it were Niido alone, I would not sign a lease based on all the problems I outlined. But there is also all the competition directly across the street. Margaritaville, True by Hilton, Stay Alfred. I'm not really interested today in investing in a place that has so much competition and the only lever you can pull is price. I like to host better and have greater hospitality and a much better value-added proposition than merely being the low cost. So I would not lease here. So that begs the question, would I come and stay here at Niido in Nashville or Niido in Orlando? And the way that it currently is set up, I have zero interest. As far as I'm concerned, I would never come back here unless they make some major changes. And I can't even think of the last place that I would say that about, but my experience here overall has been far from positive. It's been underwhelming, it's been disruptive, and it's just not conducive to the kind of travel that I want to do, whether for business or for pleasure. So the third thing that I would point out is, that said, I did learn an awful lot. And I will be making sure that my community standards and the way that I bring people together in my single family home with 14 bedrooms in the Outer Banks of North Carolina really does encourage that community. I don't want it to feel empty and soulless and without any sort of excitement. I will definitely not be pumping in nearly as much perfume or scent. I think that that's a terrible mistake, and I really just want to make sure that while my design and aesthetic is really spot on, that it's warm and welcoming and people feel like they want to come and enjoy the common spaces and meet others. So for me, it's been a really eye-opening experience. One might think that design and furniture and comfort would encourage people alone. Well, here's proof the other way. It does not work alone. There's more to it to build that community. So for me, it's been really helpful. I hope you like this video. Go ahead and let me know if you lease in the Niido or if you've stayed in the Niido. Please let me know, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. One last thing, I am not alone. Very many of the people attending STRU stayed here at the Niido, and I would say without exception, everyone had similar comments, slightly different thoughts perhaps, but everyone sort of was very underwhelmed and expecting much more from one of the newest concepts that Airbnb has rolled out. More work to do. Right now, thumbs down.